Okay, I just want to give you guys an example of what to look for. There's multiple different ways that gold can deposit. This is one of them. So that I would call a cut bank, in that it's being cut away by the river. And all of that gravel, as we come down here, there's your inside bend. So any of the gravel that comes from upstream over there would potentially deposit on that gravel bar and start at the very top tip, water's edge, into shore. In this case, it didn't seem worth it, but you will find some gold. And essentially, what you want is you want a situation like this where the old river channels from, you know, massive glacier-fed rivers would have made some sort of a deposit in the gravel of that cut bank. So when that gravel has some gold in it, and the conditions of the flood were correct, that the gravel in the deposit just downstream happens to contain gold, that's what you need to check. So this spot, maybe not so good, another spot maybe better. And in other sections, that cut bank actually deposits just on a straight length of river as well. So you don't necessarily need an inside bend. But what matters is that the gravel in that cut bank has gold in it, and that there's something downstream that can help concentrate that gold at whatever level the water was at when it was moving that gravel around. Hope that makes some sense. Back to boating. This is a situation where I would normally not really be interested in what's here because it's all just this silty stuff. But if you look right at the very bottom of that wall, there's a layer of old river gravel. So picture a massive old river, left that gravel there, and then all that silt came in and flooded on top. And directly downstream from that, we've got this narrow little gravel bar that comes off of it. And so if there is gold in that bit of gravel, there would be some gold sitting right on top here. So let's go have a look. Well, it's pretty loose stuff. If there is gold here, it'll be very easy digging. Alright, all sloshed down. And the majority of this is such light, almost like muddy sand. That's why, like, when it looks like I'm just sloshing it all out of the pan, you'll still be surprised, wow, there's black sand in the bottom of this. Plus, it's just a prospecting pan. Oh, on that slosh back, we are in fact seeing gold. This could be promising. Yeah, gold in the corner there already. Anyways, slosh her back. All right, not great, but considering how easy that is to dig, I would say that it's definitely a spot. After a few more pans that did show gold, basically tucked in around here, this little edge, there does seem to be some gold that is showing along this band. It doesn't go back too far. It sort of just sloughs off into sand back there. But there should be enough that I can just pull this front corner of the gravel bar here. I can set my box up back there because there's a little channel for tailings to go into, and this should be a good, just way to burn through one tank of gas. In this case, this little side channel actually goes downstream there. So at any point, if I were to set my highbanker up with the tailings going into this little channel, they're going to flow in that direction. And it turns out that right near the very top of this gravel bar, some of the richest pans are right in that channel. So like, that was a pretty rich spot. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to estimate how much material I could potentially go through. And I'm going to start back here and work my way forward so that I don't, you know, cover good ground with my own tailings. And that way, instead of starting where the good stuff is right up here and working back, being like, well, I want to get the good stuff first, I'm just gonna, I think, simplify the whole situation, providing I pick, you know, a bite-sized amount here. Because of just how shallow this bank is, this little shallow water intake is super handy for that. Then I've got a short length of lay flat, and instead of having to set the highbanker up exactly where I need it, this little piece of flexible hose on the end, I can basically bend this however I like and plug it directly up to that lay flat to get running. And then all the water that comes off, I'll just knock a quick trench, it'll enter this, go that way, and I am going to be digging everything on this end. Pretty much, like, even right here it really tapers off, so I'm probably just gonna come in a bit and just run this very top edge all the way to the front. Quick way to prime the pump. Just let the water run down into the pump like that. It's got a little lead weight wrapped around there that keeps it down, and because it's got window screen over it, I can do absolutely whatever I want. If I want to just drill a bunch of small holes on that hopper, spray bar there, I don't have to worry about anything plugging up. Let's see here, 8.4 hours since I added this thing. Fuel's on. I don't think I need a choke, but we'll give it one pull with a choke. Now it's just a matter of letting the air in this tube get suctioned out. So that clearly doesn't work. You can adjust just by moving the actual hose itself, or this is all threaded, and so you can actually independently have one jetting down, one jetting up. I've got a different size jet here and here. I was just playing around. But essentially this is ready for shoveling. So right here is where my tailings are going to start coming out. I didn't do any pre-digging or anything because it's like not that rich. One hand is always tricky, but you should just be able to slam this straight in. Oh yeah, let's do one more because it looks so good. So a quick check that we are in fact level here. I normally would have a bubble level like glued to the side, but I forgot about those for some reason. I have an app on my phone which I'm using, so I'm actually gonna adjust this angle. I'm just gonna double check that it's where I want it to be. I've in the past done 1 inch per foot, and I'm doing 1.5 inch foot right now because I just want to test that out. But yeah, everything seems to be working out a-okay. And this is such loose, fluffy gravel. I kid you not, it is literally the easiest digging imaginable. Like, you don't even need your foot behind the shovel. There's no big boulders. This makes any highbanker look really good. And the fact that there are actually about 100 colors per shovel in it means I can just bomb through this really, really quick. And this is the type of situation where having that wider sluice box. So to those new just tuning in, this sluice box, there's actually 2 levels here. So I don't know if I can shut off the water flow to show you, but there's a, yeah, it's kind of hard to see, but there's essentially a bottom sluice box and a top sluice box. They're running in parallel. This is 12 inches wide, so the actual sluice is 24 inches wide down there. And that allows me to basically hammer material through here way quicker than something that you would assume is, oh, that's a pretty small sluice box. And in previous testing This is only 3 feet long. That section of sluice running Pop and Sun on my local fine, flat, flaky flour gold seems to hold about 90%. And then I also catch the first like 50% of all my gold is in this hopper and in this weird contraption down here. If you want to know more about that, it's in a different video on my channel. But because this holds 50% of the gold, that catches 90% of what makes it through. The math works out that I was capturing at about 95% capture rate with me shoveling in slightly harder ground than this. So today I'm really going to be throwing it at it. I will do a tailings check at one point here just to make sure I'm good to go, but I'm basically just going to absolutely destroy this gravel bar in as little time as possible. Let's throw one more shovel in there just because it looks so good. Then I should see how deep I actually need to be digging. Is it just on the surface or should I go down like this? Because that's a pretty big shovel. But if my gold is only in that very top ledge there, it's important that I know. And so what I'm going to do is that section I just cleared, we're going to go just below it, and I'm going to test pan this to see how deep I actually need to be digging here. Going down that little next section here, there's about half as much gold as there is on the surface. Because it's so easy to dig, I'm going to go about that deep everywhere. But to go that deep is too much. It loses out as you go even deeper. It's kind of boring getting perfect results all the time. So in this case, I'm going to try to lose gold. I've got it set up at 40 US gallons per minute. It is at a 2-inch per foot slope right now. So I think it's about 10 degrees, 10 and a half maybe. And I'm going to basically just put you on this little tripod here. I'm going to shovel like a madman. About 10 shovels, like way too fast for this machine because it's the softest gravel you've ever seen. At the last shovel, I'm going to toss this tub underneath and we'll give it, I don't know, a little bit of scour time as well. So it'll be the total scour as well as the shovel, and we'll just see how bad it actually is. I expect to see some gold here. I put 2 shovels in. Should be about 200 colors that went in. Let it scour out. Now sometimes I'll do this with like the steady state, what's between shovels, plus a scour test. In this case I just like, I don't know, wasted a bunch of shovels essentially. It shouldn't catch that. There's already about 100 shovels in the highbanker, so it's full of black sand at this point already. And, well, just for the heck of it, I'll throttle down, I'll pan this, we'll see what's in the pan. If I threw 200 colors in, remember I just threw roughly 800 colors in over the 10 shovels. How much of that worked its way down and around and into this tub? Because that was running way too quick. It's only 24 inches wide. But again, 2 inches per foot of slope might mean that it doesn't flatboard as easily, it can handle a higher volume. And 2 inches of slope might mean that, whoop, camera died there. Anyways, 2 inches of slope might also mean that it's scouring out a lot more than it normally would when I was running much more conservatively at 1 inch of slope, or up to about 1.5 inches. So let's find out. Well, hopper's doing a good job of catching sticks. little bit of organics in the curved stream, but it wasn't bleeding any water there. I got one rock jammed in this corner right here. There it is. All right, so gold fingers. I see like a few pieces of gold in there. And the tub, remember I put 2 shovels in with the tub there. That looks like more than 2 shovels worth of material, meaning there was definitely a lot currently like just bunging up the whole sluice. So we should have actually a fair bit to pan through. I'll get right to it. So there's probably 4 shovels worth of fines that I screened through that 12 mesh. If you see when I normally shovel, how much is in this pan, there's a lot more here. So it was definitely flatboarding a little bit. Getting close to the bottom here. There's actually not as much black sand as I thought there would be. So the sluice might not actually be full yet. That is ridiculous. See 1, 2, 3. You see that? One little piece there. Anyways, basically, do not believe everything you see on the internet. To not lose gold there would be absolutely ridiculous. My assumption is that, okay, I haven't put 100 shovels through. I've probably only put about 50 shovels through. And so because there's so much moss in this box, you've got moss up here, you've got moss in gold fingers, and you've got 2 levels of moss. So this is like 16 inches wide at the top, 24 at the bottom. If miner's moss is not full of black sand, it catches everything. It holds on to that black sand, it holds on to that gold. And as you saw here, I used and abused this thing, and I saw 3 colors come out the bottom. Are you kidding me? If I'm gonna actually test this, I will get back to you in like when I'm halfway down this bar here, because we got to make sure that this sluice is actually full of black sand first. Because to capture, like, that's well over a 99% capture rate. I should have seen at least 200 go in, and so to see like 2 or 3 specks come out. And you can see actually behind these, partly I am running this steeper at a 2-inch per foot slope, but these are not completely full of black sand yet. So there you go. I guess when people say, yeah, miner's moss is great, but it starts losing gold once it's full of black sand. Well, it certainly doesn't lose gold before it's full of black sand. And when it is full of black sand, it will continue to catch gold under the right conditions. But holy crap. Empty, somewhere between 30 and 35 pounds, full of concentrate, probably adds about 9 kilos, would be what, like 20 pounds? So yeah, I can see that being about 50. The interesting thing about moss is if you tip this sluice 1/4 inch to one side, the stuff in this cell shifts to that side of that cell, this cell to that side of that cell. If you have strips running across your entire sluice and you tip it over that 1/4 inch, and those are only 1/4 inch deep grooves, well, guess what? This groove is going to empty on this side, and all the material that's normally in the entire thing is going to be in this side of it. And so you're going to scour out a lot of that black sand, and with it, gold. So you have to be very, very cautious when you're using anything that runs from side to side, that you stay level at all times. It's not that hard of a problem to solve, but with miner's moss, if you are running a little bit imperfectly, it seems to do the best at dealing with that without punishing you for your mistakes. But keep your box level. So every time I move, I want to make sure that I am roughly level. I think I'm a little high on that side, actually. Looks good, but if I'm slightly off, is it the end of the world? I don't think so. I'm running a little off kilter here, so I'm actually going to use this as an opportunity to do a recovery test. How bad is it? Set this down there. All right, last test, because it is actually getting pretty late in the day and I got to get out of here. But if I don't find some significant losses in this, I must be faking it. Except I'm not faking it, but. All right, fair bit of material in here. Good enough. Guys, I'm confused. I'm gonna have to do another test pan of what I'm actually shoveling. Make sure there's actually gold in it, because after panning this down, like, this does not make sense. So either when I did my previous test and I hit a 90% recovery on the box, then that was at 1 inch per foot. Then I increased the water flow, kept it at 1 inch per foot, and I went up to a 95% capture rate. At this point, I've still got the 40 US gallons per hour, roughly, but I'm running even steeper. So instead of that 1 inch, me thinking I'm smarter than Poppin' Son, at the moment I'm at about 1 3/4 inch per foot, which means that there's gonna be a lot more energy in this sluice, and it's gonna be able to bury stuff and dive it down into that miner's moss a lot better. So perhaps at the feed rate I was doing before, I was actually flatboarding the sluice a little bit to see those 5% losses. It does not make any sense to me that I'm seeing this little losses in that tub. So I'm gonna do a single shovel of this gravel bar and make sure that I'm actually still on the gold, because if for some reason there's like 25 colors in a pan, you know, still finding nothing in tailings is good, but you got to be at least that 100 colors per pan to do a proper test like this. Because I'm scratching my head. I'm like, I don't believe these results. I mean, I test panned that earlier and it had gold. So let's get a big shovel like what I threw into the highbanker. See what this is. Okay, so I'll show you what we have found. It kind of explains it. We're not super rich here, but you can clearly, let's get this all spread out, get the focus enhancer on for you. Right there, that's a shovel. So we're down below that 100 colors per shovel, but even being below 100 colors per shovel, like I threw 2 shovels in, it was being completely hammered with material, and to see nothing coming out the bottom, it really goes to show you, if you have 5 grams of gold in your sluice, there's hundreds of thousands of pieces of gold in that sluice box. Whereas if I'm not really on rich ground, you know, if I have a 1/4 gram of gold in this sluice box right now, seeing gold coming out the bottom, it's kind of just going to hold on to it. I'm not really sure what to think about this. I would definitely say takeaway is run your box at least 1.5 inches per foot of slope. It can handle a lot more volume of material. If you imagine what guys in commercial operations are running, their like yards per hour is through the roof compared to what I'm doing. And I guess this explains how that works. Cool stuff. Anyways, basically, I've got just from here to this corner up here to finish. That should probably take me another 20 minutes because at this rate, it's just, I'm gonna keep feeding at full speed. Nothing much showing. I would say this is just not super rich ground. So I'm gonna wrap this up. A lot of the times I would basically just put this in the boat, go to the next spot. I wouldn't even bother to clean out at this point, but I'm heading home. And it's occasionally nice to basically hit a location like this, see what sort of colors per pan it is, and it's hard to tell sometimes because if it's really easy digging, is it then worth it? Whereas, you know, do you just find better colors? I don't really know all of the answers here. We're all in this together. We're just here to figure this out and learn. The miner's moss that I'm using, it's a 5/16 inch thick. 1/2 inch thick works just as well, but you get more concentrates. I buy the stuff from wakulamats.com. It's placed down in the States. It like to ship to Calgary, Alberta, where I live, it's like $85, even if you buy just like 1 mat. But go together with a buddy and they sell pre-cut, like if you want a 24 inch wide by 36 inch long piece of the stuff, they sell it just like that. They sell it to the public, or you can buy a big 40-foot roll of the stuff, and you know, shipping works out a lot better per square foot if you do it that way. But I'm not here to hold any secrets. I do not sell the stuff. This is not a sponsored thing. I lucked out and found a very similar product at Canadian Tire a couple years ago, and I was like, oh, let's work with this, and it seems to work. It can be really difficult when you're purchasing vinyl noodle mat or vinyl loop matting. Some of the loops are thicker, thinner, denser, less dense. Whatever this stuff is that they sell on their website, it's got a very slightly higher quality backing than the stuff from Canadian Tire, and the stuff from Canadian Tire, I haven't been able to find it in years anyways. But yeah, Wakula mats, that's your top tip of the day. I'm basically just copying Pop and Son sluice study. I did not invent anything here. This is just sort of a rehash, like, you know, some of the ideas with the hopper and stuff, that's me, but the sluice mat that I'm using is just Pop and Son sluice, and that is where I get my miner's moss. It's backed, it's convenient. Not much more else to say. Worth mentioning, the tack on the pump said 0.6 of an hour. So if I find 0.3 of a gram, that's 1/2 gram an hour. I think that's a little ambitious. I basically dug from here all the way up and finished up into the corner. I'm gonna rake these piles flat before I take off, but it's a decent amount of work. It wasn't that rich, but I shoveled a lot. I don't know, it's hard to tell. It's hard to tell. 0.25 of a gram, and I would be like, that's respectable. We can only hope, right? Kind of looks like I was never even here. And then, of course, anchors away, or actually the opposite of anchors away, boat away. There she is, floating away. Better get on board here. All right, off we go. Woo, she starts. Oh, what's going on with this guy? Neutral. Not neutral. Turn here. I walked the first half of this and it looks doable. So, add a little context to that. I just got stuck. Backed up to the river, soft gravel. And I mean, I was able to launch my boat, but once the boat was back on the trailer and I was trying to get out, sunk her right down right fast. So I didn't spin my tires too much, and luckily somebody came to well, somebody was just there fishing, and I politely said hello. I have a tow strap, and yeah, it was pretty easy to get out of that. But man, I gotta say, I get myself into maybe a little bit too much with this pair of machines. Here's what it is. Step one is to classify everything through a 20 mesh screen. Pre-classification, I weigh the concentrates when I get home, just out of curiosity. In a location where I'm set up for a couple hours, I'll get between 8 and 9 kilograms of concentrates. However, this run, where I was only there for 0.6 of an hour, according to my engine's little tiny tack, I only came home with 7.4 kilograms of concentrates. So that may explain why my recovery rate was so good, is that I wasn't completely saturated with black sands yet. Of course, even when I'm fully saturated with black sands, recovery rate is still very good. But there's just one more little piece of information. 7.4 kilograms of concentrates from this run. Spoon her in. The last bit going through of that 0.6 hour or roughly 36-minute run of actual engine on time. How does it look? Well, it's hard to read this box, but I would say that for well under an hour, well under 45 minutes even, that was a richer location than I was expecting. I was really able to move a lot of ground quickly. So after letting it run without feeding anything for a while, you can see how that gold is really starting to show itself. At this point, I'm just going to shut off both of these pumps. And let's have a quick look at our result here. Of course, there's some decent gold showing here and in the top riffles. Come down to the bottom of this sluice, you'll notice there's significantly less gold down here. I was feeding at a fairly quick rate, which is why I am getting the losses I'm getting. Luckily, I have a second level. You can see some gold in here. Comes down to almost no gold by the bottom. And then of course I do have a third level. I definitely do not need the dual pump setup with the top thing here. I could just run this zigzag 6-inch wide Devon Gold VDR matting, and then I could just run basically 12 volts. I could still use this, but I'm using this top sluice because I have it and it lets me feed quite quickly, and just knowing that the majority of my gold is caught in that top sluice means that I have less gold to even lose down here. So all of this is going to go into a small container. We'll show you how much that concentrate weighs next. Everything we got up to this point is all in this one tiny little yogurt container. Let's go weigh what our concentrates are. So from a 0.6 hour run, everything through that 3-stage VDR sluice, just a little bit of concentrates, 178.7 grams. Wet concentrates with water poured out, but including the yogurt container. So roughly that much. The tiniest drop of jet dry into the concentrates so that as I spoon them in case there's any floating in the surface, we don't have any issues. 0.6 hours on this run, so I don't expect to see a lot, but I was able to shovel a fair amount of material. You never know until you actually clean out. We've got a nice little dusting of gold here. I'm basically going to lower the table to make it pool up, at which point I'll sweep it all together, snuffer it up. If you want to learn more about what I'm doing here with this Miller table, I've got a video you can check out. I'll put a little link to it up here in the corner. But other than that, I won't bore you with this, and we'll get to weighing how much we got. Doesn't look like, you know, it's definitely under a gram, but this is an often surprising thing that happens. You sweep what you almost can't see as gold, and you sweep it all together, and you get that little line, and it all adds up to this pile that I've got in the middle is way more than I expected to see. In my guess, I've broken a gram. Like, that is more than 1 gram in 1 hour with one guy digging. But the scale will tell for sure. But, that really is something. Finger for scale. That's gotta be over a gram. That's crazy. I was genuinely impressed with what I saw on the Miller table. Even a half gram, if it, you know, it looks like it more than it actually is and it only works out to a half gram. I mean, a half gram would be huge. I love this snuffer bottle. It was some sort of like a, I don't know, like a sauce bottle, and then I just have a random piece of vinyl tube. But the reason it works so well is because it doesn't have some kind of a weird gasket in here. You can actually get all of the gold to form up into that cone, and none gets caught anywhere else. So it's a really handy way of transferring it out of the snuffer bottle. I don't know where you can get these other than Industrial Plastics and Paints, which is a place here in town. So I made my own, but there you go. I've drawn out the weight, including the tape on here, put it on the scale, and I'm going to be using basically the exact same scale, the exact same day, and we'll just do the math to see how much gold this is. So we're going to come back once this is dry. All right, everyone, we've made it to the end of the video. We get to see how much gold we actually found in that very brief little afternoon dig. I was hoping for about 1/4 of a gram, or maybe that's what I said I was hoping for on camera, when actually I was hoping for a 1/2 gram, because come on, I dug a lot of material really quickly. I just don't want to disappoint when I, you know, hey, I think that's a 1/2 gram, but it's actually only 1/4 gram. In this case, we blew that one out of the water. I found over a gram in under an hour. I found 1.28 grams. Get you a little close up here. Excuse the camera as I take it off. Just got this little tripod thing here. There is a scale zeroed out. This thing with the tape weighs 53.4 grams. And so if the scale's the same, it should be 54.32. Yeah, hops around a little bit, so maybe we found even more gold. But yeah, the math on this is that is 1.28 grams of gold. I'm gonna click the focus enhancer and get you guys right close up here. I mean, absolute powder. Just dust. I can't believe the resolution I'm getting here on this camera of this. Like, look at how close that is. One thing to look at, like just with what we've got in the screen here, notice how one of these flakes is like a tiny little pinprick, and another flake is probably 100 times bigger than it. So that's why it's really difficult to tell how much gold you're catching just based on, you know, counting colors. That's just, you know, a few caveats. This was not, I should actually have done the math on 0.6 of an hour according to the little tiny tack in the engine, and 1.28 grams. And well, if it was 1.2 grams in 0.6 hours, that's 2 grams an hour. Caveat on that, the Paystreak is limited. So if I were to continue at that location going downriver, it significantly drops off. Obviously, knowing what I know now, it might be worth doing that for an hour though, even if it does drop off, because that was pretty rich ground. It was very easy digging. I just didn't have that much time left in the day. Also, you actually got to drive to the river, you know, 3 hours, 4 hours, and drive on the river with your boat, launch your boat, get your trailer stuck trying to unlaunch your boat. You got to prospect the ground. You got to take your highbanker out. You got to set your highbanker up. Even if we just look at the one individual dig, setting up the highbanker, let's say that's 10, 15 minutes. Probably closer to 10. I'm getting pretty quick at it. But you still got to set the highbanker up. And then at the end, when you do a cleanup, well, that takes time. You got to throw everything into the tubs. You got to clean out the mats. You got to reassemble the highbanker. You then got to, you know, put the legs back down, set the highbanker back into your boat, head back out on the river. So it's more like a day. You know, prospect, find, drive home, all that stuff. Don't just be like, oh, wow, you know, look at the dollars an hour there. What if I could find a spot? Well, this is what I do all the time. What if I could find a spot where I could actually dig for 8 hours like that? Now we're talking. And that's what I'm after, is some random remote location with a big gravel bar with a ton of digging that's this rich. That would be incredible. And maybe at some point in my life, I will get to experience something like that. Didn't happen this time, but in a little micro dose of the hobbyist prospector within me, I can be incredibly happy with this result. Like 1.28 grams in just a real quick, you know, show up, dig, and leave. Unreal. I'm really happy about that. So on that note, thank you for watching, everyone. And until next time, cheers. And until fade to black, a little more gold. Let you guys just fade out on that shot right there.